Hi, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome. My name is SYAFIQAH BINTI AZLI and I am from LG2434D. So this is our EIC556 test sheet pair presentation, and this is the contrastive analysis of The Princess and the Pea. So the justification for our story selection is that The Princess and the Pea is one of the classic bedtime stories. This easily recognizable fairy tale features straightforward sentences, sentence structures, and familiar vocabulary, making it suitable for beginner L2 learners in both English and Malay. So since the story is available in both languages, it opens the door to a clear contrastive analysis between the two renditions. So the linguistic items that we chose is, number one, in syntax, we chose prepositions, word choices, and noun phrase structure. While in morpheme, we chose inflectional, derivational, and free. While in semantics, we chose quantitative meaning, denotative meaning, and figurative. So if you guys did not know about The Princess and the Pea, so this is the story. So once upon a time, there was a prince searching for a princess to make her his bride. So he searched high and low across the kingdom looking for a true princess, one that would impress his mother, the queen. Alas, his wanderings were fruitless because although there were plenty of princesses around, something was always never quite right. Some princesses didn't have very nice manners, and others had terrible sense of humor. So with reluctance, he made his way home. After returning to his castle, empty-handed, one night a girl claiming to be the true princess turned up at the door in the midst of a raging storm. She was so wet and bedraggled that water poured out of her shoes, but nonetheless, she was invited in to find warmth and stay for the night. The prince was extremely taken with her as, despite her appearance, she was the most beautiful and kindest girl he'd met so far after all his long and weary travels. However, the wily queen, who had very set ideas on what type of lady her son should marry, was suspicious that the girl was in fact not the true princess. That night, she decided to secretly test her. The queen went to her best guest room before the girl retired to bed and placed a single uncooked pea underneath the mattress. Not quite yet satisfied, she then piled on top another 20 soft mattresses, all made of the finest goose feathers. Ha, the queen thought to herself, this will show if she is a true princess fit for a prince. The next morning, while the royal family came down for breakfast, the princess looked terrible. She had great big bags under her eyes and bruises all over. How did you sleep, princess? Asked the queen with a smirk. Oh, dreadful, cried the princess. That bed was awfully uncomfortable. I didn't sleep a wink. And with that, the princess had proven her nobility. The pea was put in a museum to be admired by the masses, and the prince and the princess married and lived happily ever after.
Assalamualaikum, and my name is KHUSNUL binti NAZERI, and right now I will continue with the Malay version of the story. Pada zaman dahulu, ada seorang putera yang ingin berkahwin. Dia mengembara ke seluruh negeri untuk mencari bakal isteri. Namun, seorang pun tidak menawan hatinya. Permaisuri memperkenalkan ramai puteri, tetapi putera tidak berkenan. Raja dan permaisuri berasa sedih melihat keadaan putera mereka. Pada suatu malam, hujan turun dengan lebat, guru berdentum dan kilat sambung menyambung. Raja, permaisuri dan putera sedang makan malam. Tiba-tiba, terdengar bunyi ketukan yang kuat dari pintu hadapan. Siapakah yang datang pada waktu begini? Tanya raja. Putera pun membuka pintu. Dia terkejut apabila melihat seorang gadis yang basah kuyup. Gadis itu menggeletar kesejukan. Putera kemudian mempersilakan gadis itu masuk ke istananya. Gadis itu memperkenalkan dirinya sebagai puteri dari negeri jiran dan tersesat ketika berjalan-jalan di dalam hutan. Dia berasa amat letih dan lapar. Gadis itu diberi persalinan dan makanan. Putera mula menyukai gadis itu. Permaisuri pula berasa curiga sama ada gadis itu berkata benar ataupun tidak. Permaisuri pun mencari helah. Dia pergi ke dapur lalu mengambil sebutir biji kacang daripada tukang masak. Kemudian dia menyuruh dayang mengambil 20 bidang tilam yang tebal. Biji kacang itu diletakkan di atas katil. Permaisuri menyuruh dayang meletakkan kesemua tilam tebal di atas katil tersebut. Dia pun memberitahu puteri di situlah tempat tidurnya. Pada keesokan pagi, permaisuri bertanya kepada puteri itu bagaimana keadaan tidurnya. Puteri menjawab, sebenarnya Patik tidak dapat melelapkan mata walaupun berasa amat letih. Permaisuri berasa amat gembira mendengar kata-kata puteri itu. Hanya puteri sebenar yang dapat merasa adanya biji kacang itu. Dia pun memberitahu putera tentang perkara sebenarnya. Permaisuri memberitahu raja dan putera tentang berita baik itu. Putera pun melamar puteri itu. Puteri itu pun bersetuju kerana dia juga telah jatuh cinta kepada putera. Putera dan puteri pun berkahwin dalam majlis besar-besaran. Permaisuri berasa gembira kerana putera mereka dapat berkahwin dengan puteri yang sebenar.
So this is the contrastive analysis, and in syntax we have preposition. In Malay, dia mengembara ke seluruh negeri untuk mencari bakal isteri, namun seorang pun tidak menawan hatinya. While English, he searched high and low across the kingdom, looking for a true princess, one that would impress his mother, the queen. Alas, his wanderings were fruitless because although there were plenty of princesses around, something was never always quite right. So the similarity of these two excerpts is that both indicate place and location, while the differences is that Malay uses ke to indicate movement to a place, while English uses across to show movement throughout a place. And the second linguistic items in syntax, which is word choice, dia terkejut apabila seorang gadis melihat seorang gadis yang basah kuyup. Gadis itu menggeletar kesejukan. Putera kemudian mempersilakan gadis itu masuk ke istananya. In the English version is that she was so wet and bedraggled that water poured out of her shoes, but nonetheless she was invited to find warmth and stay for the night. So the similarities between these two excerpts is that both excerpts include the action of being invited in, describing the girl's strange condition and highlight her on being cold. So, but the differences of this is that the Malay version focuses on the prince's perspective, while the English version focuses on the girl's condition. And then on to the noun phrases. Both of these excerpts, which I will read later, feature noun phrases referring to a pea, a bed, a group of mattresses, and royal figures. That is the similarity between these two excerpts, which is in Malay version, biji kacang itu diletakkan ke atas katil. Permaisuri menyuruh Dayang meletakkan kesemua katil tebal di atas katil tersebut. Tilam tebal di atas katil tersebut. Dia pun memberitahu putera di situlah tempat tidurnya. But in English, the queen went to her best guest room before the girl retired to bed and placed a single uncooked pea underneath the mattress. Not quite yet satisfied, she then piled top another 20 soft mattresses, all made of the finest goose feathers. So the differences between these two excerpts is that the English includes more adjectival modifiers, which highlights the quantity plus state. For example, a single uncooked pea rather than the Malay simple biji kacang itu. So with that said, with the syntax all done, so this is the evaluation of prediction of the linguistic items in syntax that may or may not cause difficulty in learning. So L2 learners may be confused with the differences in prepositional usage like ke versus across or untuk versus for due to the structural and contextual mix matches between Malay and English. Second would be that the L2 learners may feel overwhelmed at the complex noun phrases in English as they are more detailed and layered compared to the simpler Malay equivalents. And then the third one would be L2 learners may be confused at the passive versus active voice structure in English, especially when the agent is omitted, which is less common in Malay narratives. So there are possible ways to assist L2 learners to learn the linguistic items, and these are the possible ways. So the number one would be the translating noun phrases or prepositional phrases both ways to directly compare English and Malay sentence structures. And the second one would be practicing breaking down complex noun phrases into smaller parts to help learners understand the order and the function of adjectives and determiners in English. And the third one would be introducing passive structures gradually, using familiar, context-based examples like fairy tales, so learners can see how meaning remains even when the subject changes position or is omitted. Let's move on to the next linguistic items, which is the morpheme. So the first one is the original morpheme. In the Malay version, this is the excerpt. Putri menjawab, sebenarnya Patik tidak dapat melelapkan mata walaupun merasa amat letih. However, in English, it's said that, "Oh, dreadful," cried the princess. The bed was awfully uncomfortable. I didn't sleep a wink. So the similarity between these two excerpts is that both languages form new words using their original affixes. For example, in Malay, berasa comes from ber, which is the prefix, and rasa, that is base or the root word, to the verb, to feel. While in English, comfort is changed to uncomfortable. Unable is added to change meaning and word class. However, the difference is that Malay relies more on the prefixes, while English uses prefix plus suffix combinations. So English derivation tends to create longer compound adjectives, while Malay uses verbs or modifiers to express similar meanings. And then the second linguistic items in morpheme is that it is inflectional. So in this excerpts, in the Malay version that is, permaisuri menyuruh Dayang meletakkan kasut tilam tebal di atas katil tersebut. Dia pun memberitahu puteri di situlah tempat tidurnya. And this is the English version. The queen went to her best guest room before the girl retired to bed and placed a single uncooked pea underneath the mattress. Now, the similarity between both of these is that both languages mark possessive meaning, such as in Malay, tidurnya, nya is a possessive pronoun suffix, meaning her or his, while in English, queen's guest room is implied that in her best guest room, her is a possessive pronoun. That is the similarity, but now comes with the differences. Malay has minimal inflection, as in verbs do not change form for tense or subject. For example, berasa is used for any subject, while English has a richer inflection, as in verbs change based on tense, like cry to cried and sleep to slept. And that is all from me today. I will give the rest of this presentation to my partner. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, as for free morpheme, the Malay version is dia terkejut apabila melihat seorang gadis yang basah kuyup. Gadis itu menggeletar kesejukan. And in English, she was so wet and bedraggled that water poured out of her shoes. But nonetheless, she was invited in to find warmth and stay for the night. Actually, both include words describing state or condition of the girl. And for the differences, English condenses meaning using complex sentences and adjectives, while Malay uses more analytic structures as in function words like yang or apabila. Moving forwards to the evaluation of prediction of the linguistic items of morpheme that may or may not cause difficulty in learning. Malay L2 learners may find it difficult at inflectional morpheme in English, for example, plural S, past tense ed, since bahasa Melayu typically relies on word order or context rather than inflection to indicate tense or plurality. Next is derivational morphemes like nes, li, or Malay per, an can be challenging due to their role in changing word class, noun to adjective, and verb to noun, which requires deeper vocabulary awareness in both languages. And the last one is free morphemes such as function words, yang, apabila in Malay, that, but, which is in English, might not seem complex individually but can be confusing due to differing syntactic functions in each language. So for the possible ways to assist L2 learners to learn the linguistic item morpheme, the first one is L2 learners can explicitly compare morpheme functions, for example, plural markers in English versus Malay, to help learners understand structural differences between L1 and L2 in the usage of contrastive analysis. Next is L2 learners can learn root words alongside their common derivational and inflectional affixes through word families, for example, happy, happiness, and unhappy. In morpheme, focus vocabulary building. And the last one is L2 learners can use interactive sentence construction activities like games or tasks where learners build sentences using base and affixed words to reinforce morpheme function and placement in context. Now let's move forward to the semantic part. The first one is connotative meaning. The Malay version is hanya puteri sebenar yang dapat merasa adanya biji kacang itu, and the English version is had proven her nobility. The similarity here is both associate physical sensitivity with royal blood or legitimacy, and the differences, the Malay version emphasizes perasaan halus, which is delicacy, while the English uses it to validate royal identity without emotional tone. And the second one is denotative meaning. For the Malay excerpts here is biji kacang itu diletakkan di atas katil, and for the English version, placed a single uncooked pea underneath the mattress. The similarity here is both refer to a real pea being used to test the girl's sensitivity, and while for the differences, the English version specifies more detail, which is uncooked and underneath, whereas the Malay version is much simpler. And the last one is metaphor. As for metaphor, the Malay excerpts here is permaisuri pun mencari helah. And for English version, the princess had proven her nobility. So both actually treat the pea as a metaphorical tool to reveal hidden truth. And as for the differences, Malay uses a clearer action, while the English metaphor is embedded in the result. Now let's move forward to the evaluation of prediction of the linguistic items, which is semantics, that may or may not cause difficulty in learning. The first one is L2 learners may be struggle to differentiate between denotative and connotative meanings in both languages, especially when a simple word, for example, biji kacang, which is pea, carries symbolic meaning beyond its literal form. The next one is learners might misinterpret figurative language or metaphors, such as viewing the pea as just an object rather than a metaphor for sensitivity or royal legitimacy. And the last one is the emotional tone or implied meaning, which is connotative meaning in English, like exaggeration, which is eyes and bruises all over, may confuse learners due to cultural stylistic differences from Malay, which tends to use more formal or straightforward expressions. And as for the possible ways to assist L2 learners to learn the linguistic item, which is semantic, the first one is use guided comparison tasks where students identify literal versus implied meanings in both versions of the story. Second one is encourage learners to explore cultural context and common metaphors in both languages through storytelling or visual aids. The third one is provide semantic mapping activities, for example, diagrams showing literal, implied, and metaphorical meanings to help learners to recognize layered meanings in a text. And the last one is practice rewriting metaphors or connotative phrases into plain language and vice versa to build awareness of deeper meaning. This contrastive analysis of the princess and the pea highlights key syntactic differences and similarities between Malay and English, focusing on prepositions, word choice, and noun phrases. By understanding how each language structures meaning, educators can better support L2 learners through targeted strategies such as using parallel translations, breaking down complex phrases, and gradually introducing grammatical features like defensive voice. These insights can enhance learners' comprehension and confidence in navigating both language. And that is all from us. Thank you.